FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's the day after Memorial Day. We're back. I just got back from my son's graduation, the final one. I am done with tuition bills. The final one is off the payroll. I am thrilled, ecstatic, really ready to really get going here and talking about freedom from recurring payments and all that. Well, he's been on the show before. His name's John Gaver. You can find him on the site, therichdon'tpaytax.com. He's all about fairness. When you're talking about fairness in taxation, you got to be talking about the fair tax. John's going to talk about 2 bills, actually 3 bills that are pending right now, 2 dealing with the flat tax, and his personal favorite, which is the fair tax. I'll let him explain the details, the distinctions between the 3. They're really quite dramatic. And John, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back on the show, Kerry.
Hey, we're thrilled to have you. So tell us, the fair tax, the flat tax, the media has done a very poor job of educating you about what's what. Tell us first the difference between the fair tax and the flat tax, because difference is overwhelming. It's dramatic, isn't it?
Oh, well, yes, it is, actually. The fair tax is a complete overhaul of the tax code. It abolishes the IRS. It gets rid of all taxation on income, all payroll taxes, inheritance taxes, anything else like that. Everything that shows up on your 1040, plus everything that your payroll taxes all go away, and it's rolled into a national retail sales tax that is the same rate for everyone. But in order to make that sales tax progressive so that it doesn't punish the poor, there's what we call a prebate. It's a rebate, but it comes at the first of the month. So I guess the marketing people came up with that prebate idea. Anyway, this prebate is equal to the amount of sales tax that a person spending or a family spending at the poverty level for a family of that size would pay in sales tax at the cash register in the month. So they get all their sales tax that they would have spent up to the poverty level back. Everything after that, they're paying, at the same rate. But what this does is this has the effect of making it progressive. So someone spending at the poverty level is paying 0 in sales tax net. Someone spending at, double the poverty level would be paying 11.5% sales tax. By the way, most people would pay less than about 11% overall by the time you include the prebate. The flat tax, on the other hand, is basically it keeps the IRS. You can't get rid of it. It cuts all the rates down to one rate. The rate is 17% in both bills, H.R. 1040 and H.R. 1824. The rate is 17%. Both of them they keep a standard deduction. One is a lot higher than the other. All that does is compress the middle class, because what happens is the top taxpayers. In my book, I quote the IRS data about the top 1% because they break it down that way. And the top 1% currently earn 22% of the income. They pay 38% of the taxes. But if we go to the CBO data, CBO breaks it down in quintiles. And the top quintile pays today 23.4% tax on their gross income. Now, I like to use the CBO data because they use gross income as opposed to the IRS, who uses adjusted gross. The gross income is all of their market income plus government transfers. And that top quintile pays 23.4% today. Under a flat income tax, they would pay 17%. That's basically a 27% tax cut for the wealthy. The middle quintile today pays tax at 11.1% of their gross income. And that, by the way, that 11.1% and the 23.4 is including payroll taxes. So they're paying 11.1% today under the flat income tax, either one of them, at the 53% tax increase. Now, in my book, I talk about the rich are being punished for their success. And yes, they do need a bit of a break, but I think taxing the middle class 53% more to give the rich a 27% tax break is a little much, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm all for, making it fair, but I think that's reversing the tables there. So that's one of the reasons I'm in favor of the fair tax. Besides all the flat tax bills, there's two in the House and a mirrored one of them in the Senate. They have three sponsors, one sponsor for each bill, no co-sponsors. For the fair tax, the last time I checked, I think it's 77 co-sponsors or sponsors and co-sponsors in both houses. So I think it stands a lot better chance of passage, because once people realize that a flat income tax is going to raise taxes on everybody but the rich, it's not going to pass. And I think that's why a lot of people are unwilling to sign on to it.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's got to be fair to everybody. Everybody needs to see their taxes go down. But, John, there are so many people who don't pay income tax now. More than 50% of the population doesn't pay it. Even if you are working gainfully employed now, so many of you don't pay income tax. So you're not really vested in the system, are you?
Well, a lot of people don't think they're vested in the system. In fact, if you have a job, you pay 7.65% in payroll taxes for Social Security and Medicare, which, by the way, is covered in the fair tax. So what you pay at the cash register takes care of that Social Security payroll tax that they're now paying. So those people may say, oh, I don't pay any tax. I don't earn enough to pay any tax. But if you have a job, you're paying 7.65%. Plus the fact, when you buy a head of lettuce, you pay your electric bill, you pay your rent. You're paying embedded income tax for the lettuce farmer, the trucker, the wholesaler, the next trucker, the retail distributors. Everybody's got income tax rolled into the price of that head of lettuce, or, your car payment, or whatever it is. There's taxes paid in there. But under the income tax, most people in the lower brackets don't really realize how much it's costing them.
Yeah, that's true. There's so many taxes that you encounter in your day-to-day life that are totally hidden, stealth taxes. Energy, for example, your electric bill, how much tax do you pay on that that's totally hidden?
Yes. Well, everything you buy, you don't even know like I say, here in Texas, we have a sales tax, but food is exempted. And that the idea is so that we're not going to tax cost of living items. But they can't. Everybody's cost of living, needs are different. Someone who's handicapped may have needs that are different from someone who isn't. So the fair tax says basically we're just going to exempt spending up to this level by giving you the prebate that absolutely gets rid of all the taxes up to the poverty level. Now, let me go back here. We were talking about that middle quintile. The people earning $66,400. That is the median. That's the average income for the middle quintile. They take home $59,000 after taxes. That under the fair tax, family of four spending $59,000 would pay 10.58% fair tax after the prebate, $6,000 basically. Now, if they went really, really crazy and they decided to spend that entire $66,400, that would be 11.96%. So somewhere in the middle is where they're probably going to be, because they're going to put some in savings. They're going to buy some used items. They're going to spend some on education. Education spending is exempted under the fair tax. So they're going to be right around that 11.1% that they're paying today.
Wow. So they come out the same, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. Everybody pretty much comes out the same. Now, the people who come out different are illegal aliens, because they don't get that prebate check. They don't have a Social Security number. they don't get the prebate check, and therefore they pay the full 23% on everything they buy. That's the fair tax rate, is 23% before the prebate. So the way you calculate it is you take how much you paid during the month, whatever your prebate is, you subtract that, and then you look at what you've got left. That is your fair tax rate, because it's a net rate. The prebate, by the way, works exactly the same way as the standard deduction. Well, not exactly, I guess, because the standard deduction doesn't completely untax poverty. The prebate absolutely untaxes poverty. And that's the whole idea of both the standard deduction and the prebate, is to untax poverty level spending or poverty level income.
So
prebate work, the standard deduction, not so much.
So where's the opposition to this plan coming from? I don't understand why anyone would be opposed to it.
Well, Washington power brokers, I think, are the primary culprits here. They don't want to give up the power that the income tax gives them, and Congress doesn't want to give up the power that it gives them, because they can work with these lobbyists, the PACs and everything, and we'll give your industry a certain tax break, and now the PAC donates tons of money to their political campaigns, and it's a money deal. You got to follow the bucks, follow the dollars, and something I learned when I was very young: follow the dollars. And I think that's where most of it is coming from. They want a flat income tax because it allows them to keep the IRS. Here's another interesting thing about a flat income tax. They talk about, we're going to get rid of the IRS. I hear candidates saying we need to pass a flat income tax so we can abolish the IRS and send our tax return in on a postcard. And I ask, well, where are you going to send that postcard if you just abolish the IRS? You can't abolish it. Today, there are 158 million personal and business taxpayers. Under a flat income tax, there will be 158 million personal and business taxpayers. Nothing changes. The whole reason for the IRS is what they call the tax gap. That's the money that is not paid on time or in full in taxes. IRS most recent report shows the tax gap is $450 billion. 10% of that, $45 billion, is adjustments, deductions, exemptions, and credits. Those are the four things that flat income tax gets rid of. The rest of it is underreporting. Underreporting of business income, $122 billion. Underreporting of payroll taxes, which is probably mostly illegal aliens, $72 billion. Underreporting of personal income, $68 billion. It goes on down, all kinds of underreporting. Then you have $28 billion in non-filing. None of those things go away under a flat income tax. So you have exactly the same number of taxpayers, which is exactly the same number of opportunities for tax fraud, and you've only got rid of 10% of the cause of the tax gap. You cannot get rid of the IRS under a flat income tax. And anyone that tells you otherwise either doesn't know what he's doing or he's, pandering for votes. But you can't do it.
Right. So with the fair tax, basically your taxes are going to go down. Compliance won't exist anymore, and there won't be any need for the IRS. But with the flat tax, somebody's got to be the enforcer. But because the rate goes down so low, the theory is that compliance will go up because incentives not to comply will be lessened. That's their theory, isn't it?
Well, the theory is there, but remember, though, most of the people under a flat income tax are going to see a tax increase. Only that top quintile, and really mostly the top 10%, are the ones that are going to see it. Businesses will see a benefit as well, okay? But the big businesses, aren't where the problem is. If you go to states where they collect sales taxes, you'll find that big businesses, the big box stores, the chain stores and everything, they don't have tax fraud issues with those businesses. 90% of the tax fraud comes from 10% of the people who provide only 10% of the sales tax revenue. And the same thing applies under an income tax, is that your big box stores, they're too busy trying to comply with laws and make a lot of money, and they don't want to get caught up in a battle that they know they can't win. So, and they have all these, prepackaged software packages to do all of their accounting. So it's just not worth their time to even try it. So they are not the problem. It's the people in the middle to middle upper income who are the problem. A lot of the big people will continue to hide money. If their intent is to hide money, they're going to do it. If you cut the tax to 5%, they're still going to be, once they take on that attitude, it's kind of like Leona Helmsley, who famously said, "Only the little people pay taxes."
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that's the attitude of those people, and you're not going to change that.
Yeah, there's really nothing that could stop it under the conventional system that's out there. So rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, it ain't going to work.
Right. Under the fair tax, though, let's look at something under the fair tax as far as compliance. Under a sales tax, it takes two people to commit tax fraud. Actually, one person could do it, but he's going to get caught just instantly because it takes two people to hide it. And what happens, it's going to take either the seller and the buyer colluding, or it's going to take the seller and his supplier colluding. So one of them either reports less purchases or less sales, and they collude to do that. So it takes two people to be willing to commit tax fraud under a sales tax. Now, under the fair tax, there's going to be a lot of fair tax supporters say 17 million businesses. Those who oppose the fair tax say 25 million. So let's use the high number, 25 million businesses. That's 1/6 as many tax collection points as we have today. So that's 1/6 as many opportunities for tax fraud, which means you would have to have 6 times as many people willing to commit tax fraud. But since we have to have 2 people to commit tax fraud under sales tax, that's 12 times as many people who would have to be willing to commit tax fraud. But it gets worse because remember, under the sales tax, 90% of the revenue comes from the big box stores, 10% of the businesses. So now for tax fraud to have to be as bad, you're going to have to throw a 10-to-1 ratio on that. 120 times as many people would have to be willing to commit tax fraud for tax fraud to be as bad as it is under an income tax. And there's one more little gotcha here. When 2 people who are unrelated commit a crime and they collude to commit a crime, that becomes conspiracy. And now you're looking at some serious jail time. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm wholly behind the concept, and I think you got an uphill battle. But if enough of you out there refuse to embrace the old system and embrace the new system, then we got a fighting shot. Isn't that the concept?
That's the concept. We have to get out there and fight and tell our Congress critters, look, we're tired of this. The flat income tax isn't going to cut it. You're going to have to give up your power because it's all about power. And you're going to have to give up some of your power here so that we can get our lives back. We can get control of our own finances back. Businesses can make decisions based on business needs rather than on how's it going to affect our taxes. They can actually, only people pay tax, really. That's one of the things that I cite in The Rich Don't Pay Tax, or Do They, is only people pay tax because businesses just roll that tax, whatever tax it is, whether it's a sales tax or property tax or an income tax, payroll taxes get rolled into the price of their final product, and a living, breathing person ultimately pays that tax.
Yeah, all
and
of us do.
We have to make people aware of the fact that it costs them, even when they don't see the tax.
Yeah, most of it is hidden. You're correct. Anyway, hey, people want to find out more about you, what you're doing here. John, where's the best place to go? How did they get your book?
Okay. therichdon'tpaytax.com is the website. Right now, we've just taken the book off sale because we're coming out with a new release, updated using the most recent IRS and CBO data, added some extra stuff into it as well. It will be released sometime in the next few weeks. We haven't got a date, we're shooting to make the New York Times bestseller list, and you have to time it just right. You don't want to be competing against a bunch of, Bill O'Reillys and J.K. Rowlings and, Pattersons and those people, so you got to time it. So we don't know the exact release date yet, but the richdon'tpaytax.com, if you go out there and watch when that book that on the left that says coming soon goes away from coming soon, it'll be on sale, and the links there will take you to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or whatever to make the purchase there. There will be pre-sales, and when that goes away, there will actually be the pre-sales. My next book to come out will be The Tax Deception, and that is a head-to-head comparison, what we're talking about today, between the fair tax and both versions of the flat income tax. And it's using a goals-based analysis, which is the way a lot of businesses make decisions, set goals for the company. You don't have the board members don't have to know everything about marketing and manufacturing and everything that goes into their product. All they have to do is set goals, and then they pick the method that meets most of those goals. And we can do the same thing as taxpayers. We don't have to be economists to figure this out. The economists already created the two flat income taxes and the fair tax. All we have to do is see how it affects us and make decisions based on goals. And that's what the tax deception is all about.
All right. And of course, as always, you will find all the links in the show notes to this interview on Financial Survival Network. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list. We just had a phenomenal webinar with Rick Rule and John Embry of Sprott, of the Sprott organization. It was incredible. Actually, it's 2 webinars for the price of 1, and you don't pay for them anyway. But if you sign up, you will get a free link sent to you. It's up on the site now, Financial Survival Network. John, thanks so much for coming on. It was really a pleasure and informative. Wish you the best of luck in this fight.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being on again, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.